Welcome to the Startup Grind. So Paul Graham has talked about, used you guys as this example of really attacking very, very difficult problems, and people that he uses comparison of how many like recipe websites he's gotten, how many pitches he's gotten over the years versus no one ever pitched this idea. So, and because it was so big, it was you're solving such a huge problem. Where did you even start? I mean, where does something like that even begin?
So we didn't really know where to start, and like I definitely wouldn't pretend that we did. And
I mean, I would have started by like crying, in the fetal position or something. I mean, it's like, did you? It's just you and your brother,
yeah,
right?
So basically, we faked it. So what we did was we decided to go on holiday and just like go hack somewhere. And maybe I don't know how to pronounce his name, but there's this guy. Mache, and I'm gonna totally like mess
He
up
may be
his-
here, so.
Yeah, I'm gonna totally mess up his surname, but it's something like Sidlowski or Chidlowski or something like that. I apologize, Mache, if you ever see this. His website is idlewords.com, and he's a really good writer, and he wrote this series of blog posts about Buenos Aires and how it's like the best place ever to go and hack because it's really cheap and everything's open really late and there's like Wi-Fi everywhere and the climate's really nice and everything. And so John and I were facing this winter in Cambridge, Massachusetts, which is definitely not like that in basically any respect. And so we decided to go to Buenos Aires and just like hack all day in cafes on trying to build a prototype here. And so we did that, and it turns out to be basically exactly as described. And so if ever like you just want to go and like work on something sort of single-mindedly for a month, I cannot recommend Buenos Aires more highly. We spent like $10 a day, and the weather was gorgeous. And like bizarrely, all of the cafes have Wi-Fi for no reason that I can discern, like much more than is the extent here. All the restaurants open really late. In that we were turned away from restaurants at like 9 o'clock in the evening because it was too early. All the bars are open until like 5 a.m. People only start going to bars at 2 a.m. and nobody gets up before midday. And so basically it's like an entire city on a hacker schedule. And we were like the worst tourists ever in that I still have not seen like a single site or anything in Buenos Aires. We just like got up, went to a cafe and like hacked all day. And at the end of that, we had the first prototype of Stripe.
After a month.
After a month, or I guess we had the first production user actually about a week after going to Buenos Aires. And what we did was we just like called up a friend who worked at a payment processing company and said, is it okay if we just kind of send a couple of accounts your way? And we sort of built sort of this really nice kind of this nice API and sort of interface for setting up accounts or whatever. And then when you sort of clicked create account or whatever, rather than an account actually being created sort of in the financial infrastructure, however that worked, we had no idea. We just like went and called our friend, which scaled to at least a couple of users. And so we
And you set it up all manually behind the scenes.
Yeah, this was totally manual. And I mean, at this point, like we had literally 2 users, and both of them were like good friends of ours. And so Paul Buchheit has this great story about building Gmail, where like he kind of repurposed the Google Groups code, which predates Gmail, to build Gmail. And so like he built the first working prototype in an afternoon, and it just it loaded all of his email into like the Google Groups interface, and he could kind of browse in the Google Groups interface, and he like showed his friends, and they're like clicking through it, and they're like, oh, this is great, but it would be really awesome if instead of viewing your email, I could view mine. And it was this like very kind of direct user request-driven development. And it was sort of similar to this with Stripe in that we sort of like built the API that allows you to charge credit cards, and so went on user requests from there. And so Ross Boucher was actually the very first user of Stripe. He was at a company called 280 North at the time, and he's like, this API is great, but what would be really awesome is if you actually transfer the money into my bank account after I charge credit cards. We're like, right, fair. And similar requests like this. And so.
So what it didn't go anywhere? Because I thought you were setting this up on the back end for him, or no?
Yeah, I can't remember.
It's all fuzzy math at this point.
But it was very much driven by basically what things they bugged us to build.
Sure.
And so we launched this prototype, and again I sort of The Stripe.
You're not back from Argentina, or are
Yeah,
you
so,
there?
so by the time we say got back from Argentina at the end of January, sort of the product existed, and it actually existed in sort of fairly close form to what Stripe is today. Like just this really simple notion that you can go to a website, like by filling it in a really minimal amount of information, you can start accepting credit cards immediately on the internet. And the fundamental idea is that it should be possible to launch a website and accept payments on it within like 30 minutes. And,
Yeah.
before Stripe was this multi-day.
Yeah, it's
Exactly.
it's 5-7 business days,
Right,
something.
Right. And I mean that's when sort of it got hard, right? Because kind of figuring out what the sort of software side of Stripe should look like. I mean, you can kind of imagine it, but then like, how do you possibly reconcile all of that with like the financial infrastructure and merchant accounts and gateways and laws and PCI and they're just like the words we knew. And so we went back to school and we sort of finished the next semester and we decided to work on it out in Palo Alto over the next summer. And I guess that's when we started working full time on Stripe. I guess about a year and a half ago.